At the time when the Sith needed to go most, Luke Skywalker let him put on petite unbreak friends, and welcome back to the Star Wars lore that I haven't seen any other YouTuber across all of Star Wars discuss, and that is going to be the Ancient Jedi art that Luke Skywalker rendered extinct by defeating Palpatine on Biss, and therefore sentencing the dark side to near complete extinction until the time of Abeloth, the lost tribe of the Sith, and of course many years after Luke Skywalker's own mortal death, with that being the rise of Darth Krayt and his own one Sith ideology. We are going to be speaking about the Ancient Jedi art that was pioneered by the first Jedi, the Jedi Order, and discovering how this art finally went extinct with the final death of Emperor Sheev Palpatine. While Palpatine unarguably needed to go, Luke Skywalker accidentally destroyed the last trait of an ancient Jedi science and lore when he killed him on Biss and destroyed the last of Palpatine's clone bodies, with the Jedi named Bran dragging him down into the very void of space, with helpful aid from Luke. It seems obvious that Luke Skywalker defeating Palpatine in Dark Empire was a good thing, and a prosperous time for the galaxy, but upon taking a look into the origins of the Jedi Order itself, 25,000 years before Palpatine was even born, and the Sith, it seems as though Luke accidentally and unintentionally destroyed the last trace of an ancient Jedi science by beating the tyrannical Darkside Emperor. In the ancient past of Dark Horse Comics Star Wars canon, the Jedi and the Sith were once an order dedicated to true balance in the Force. Very similar to Qui-Gon Jinn, they followed the will of the Force, not the dogmatic and biased view of the Senate, which only cared about power and manipulation. This order was appropriately named the Jedi and predated both the Jedi and the Sith. And while it was more similar to the era of the prequel trilogy Jedi Order than it was to the Sith, there was really no distinction between the light and dark side of the Force, as any imbalance at all meant total calamity. This lesson was actually a literal one, as the world they lived on had two moons, one light and one dark, representing each other and the sides of the Force, and if they were out of balance, the world of the Jedi would be effectively no more, and would be literally pulled from the gravitational waves of space. This means that the practices and sciences of the Jedi influence both the modern-day Jedi and Sith in unique, unorthodox ways, including one particular practice that only Emperor Palpatine seemed to remember. Palpatine practiced genetic mutation, just like Star Wars' Ancient Jedi. In Star Wars Dawn of the Jedi, Force Storm 2 by John Ostrander and Gian Girasima, readers are taken to the time of the Jedi and shown the day-to-day of this ancient order that predated the arrival of the Jedi and the Sith. As shown on one of the opening panels of this book, the Jedi sense something deep within a chasm in their own world, and a crevice running in the light side that is interfering and blocking their senses through the Force. Everyone who went down to investigate never came back, and any machinery they attempted to use to analyze what was creating this absolute monstrosity was destroyed before anything was learned. So, the Jedi Order used a new form of Force science that allowed them to genetically alter living creatures in a way that better served the will of the Force, or at least what they perceived. In this issue, readers see the Jedi using a Rancor dragon creature of their own creation to try to enter the chasm and find out what is down there. This was known as a mutant, and mutant Rancors were quite infamous in this lore. A mutant was an individual organism, or a new genetic character arising or resulting from an instance of mutation, which is a sudden structural change within the DNA of a gene or chromosome of an organism, resulting in the creation of a new character or trait not found in the parental and typical type. In some cases, mutants were created through genetic engineering, radiation, or the dark side, most notably Sith alchemy and magic. Some of the most notable mutations that were incurred by Dark Lords was that of being Marka Ragnos, Naga Sadow, and Exar Kun, who all influenced Sith magic and alchemy in such a way they were able to genetically manipulate and modify entire hordes of monsters, including Masasai and Tyranitar. Subjects were often remade into mutants to be more brutal, more cunning, and in some cases intelligent, such as the Wilk, a Wilk from the forest moon of Endor, who was able to understand and speak galactic-based standard after mutation. In other cases, individuals of a wide range of species were born mutants, and most notably Triclopses and the Karimak. Some notable Dark Jedi and Sith mutants was the Battle Hydra made by Exar Kun, the Chrysalide Rancors made by Palpatine, the Imperial Sentinels made by Palpatine. the Night Beast by Exar Kun, the Unkojo by Carissa, and the Techno Beast as well as the Techno Virus by the Dark Lord Belia Darzu. We have to acknowledge two more, and that is the Storm Beast by Darth Revan Sith Empire, along with Darth Malak, and the Tanab Mutant Rancor, made by the Disciples of Ragnos, a fanatical cult that were devoted to the Sith Lord Ragnos in the early age of the New Republic era, who were fanatical beings, who were all powerful on the dark side, that worshipped this ancient dark side lord. Proceeding. It wasn't though Jedi were mad scientists, creating unholy abominations of the Force just to see if they could. They were guided by the pure will of the Force in their efforts and experimentation. It's currently completely absent in the New Republic era, and typically the prequel era, where the Jedi deemed experimentation to be a problem and completely exterminated it all, with even the wisest masters such as Yoda and Mace Windu barely scratching the surface of the Force that they could have unlocked without scratching through the dark side. It has explicitly been stated in multiple sources that they did not pursue the use of experimentation, as they saw in the past, specifically during the First and Second Great Schism, that experimentation often led to dark side tendencies, and the growing of one's power ultimately allowed them to be corrupted by the dark side, and ultimately would allow another schism to happen, meaning there would be an Eighth Great Schism, something that would prove to be the Jedi's utter failure, as Yoda, in my opinion, as if he had completely devoted himself to the will of the Force like a being like Qui-Gon, would have been able to best Darth Sidious in the Senate chambers if he had fully understood the mysticism of the Force, and instead only looked at one side of it, and only scratched the surface of the Force powers of the light that he could control. It was almost like they were given permission to alter and speed up evolution in a way that wouldn't naturally occur, at least not for a very long time, but also in a way that wasn't outstandingly unnatural and outstandingly devoted to the dark side. What they did, they could only do with the blessing of the Force. That's how in tune the Jedi were with the cosmic current that is the Force, that binds the galaxy together. Dark, light. It was constantly imbalanced during these times. That being said, Emperor Palpatine, the Dark Lord of the Sith, the de facto most powerful Sith of all time, as some would say, did not abide by the guidelines of the Force. Palpatine made himself exceptionally attractive to the dark side, and was able to genetically and alchemically manifest new life through genetic manipulation and mutation as well, with Snoke on Exegol being the prime example, though there are other hounds and monsters created by Palpatine's hand throughout the events leading up to the original trilogy, the most notable being Snoke. Snoke, for those who don't know, was a Strand-cast male clone who was created through genetic mutation by the Sith Eternal cultists on Exegol, and served originally as a clone body for Palpatine until his flesh proved insufficient in order to contain Palpatine's immense dark side power. Fearing death, Palpatine housed himself within flesh and contained his body within a variety of circuitry and various life support systems, while he used Snoke as a puppet, feigning his wounds as possibly having an encounter with Grandmaster Luke Skywalker at the time, which in fact would later be proved as canonized. However, unlike the Jedi, the Emperor's experiments were unnatural, as they were made with nothing but the dark side of the Force, and that concentrated dark energy totally corrupted this ancient practice. While Palpatine certainly bent the genetic mutation practice to his will, he was still the only Force user in the modern era that pulled it off, after the death of Yoda and Mace Windu, or even recognized it. Darth Vader never delved into alchemical mutantry, or genetic augmentation and mutation, for that matter. That means when Emperor Palpatine was bested by Luke Skywalker on Biss, and was dragged down to the depths of chaos, and then permanently afterwards, every known trace of this practice, corrupted or not, was lost to time within the Star Wars universe, and this ancient Jedi science was effectively destroyed forever. Or at least, that is what we have been made to believe. Anyway, my friends, what did you think of this video? Did you personally enjoy this? About how the science that Palpatine used was actually beneficial to the Jedi, and how in the end, Luke Skywalker was the one who extinguished this ancient Jedi practice. Remember, my friends, I'll see you in a galaxy far, far away. The Force will be with you. And remember, our warlocks have seen a horrifying vision recently while meditating. We have received a vision of the beings who have not subscribed yet. If you wish to create balance in the Force, I implore you, hit the subscribe button. It is your destiny. Farewell, my friends, and I'll see you in a galaxy far, far away.